Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. On leaving the synagogue, Jesus entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. They immediately told him about her. He approached, grasped her hand, and helped her up. Then the fever left her, and she waited on them. When it was evening after sunset, they brought to him all who were ill or possessed by demons. The whole town was gathered at the door. He cured many who were sick with various diseases, and he drove out many demons, not permitting them to speak because they knew him. Rising very early before dawn, he left and went off to a deserted place where he prayed. Simon and those who were with him pursued him, and on finding him said, "Everyone is looking for you." He told them, "Let us go on to the nearby villages, that I may preach there also. For this purpose have I come." So he went into their synagogues, preaching and driving out demons throughout the whole of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, this is a powerful gospel passage. It draws on what we saw just a couple little sections ago in the Gospel of Mark, that Jesus teaches with authority, and we see what that authority looks like in action, and it's remarkable to see what all is going on. I mean, of course, like I said yesterday, Jesus curing a woman who was sick with a fever. Okay, well, good for her, but it's like, is it like earth-shattering stuff there? I mean, my own bias. It doesn't seem like it is, but what we see as we go is it's more of the same. So in the sense of like what we see in action there, Jesus healing the mother-in-law of Simon Peter is allows us to see who Jesus is, because it is such and I hate saying this, but it is such an insignificant moment. Right? It's clearly significant because it's recorded here in the scriptures, but we know that the Gospel of Mark is. I would like some healing for this, but I'm jealous. That's the problem. Okay, we know the Gospel of Mark is say something like the memoirs of Saint Peter, because Mark is a traveling companion of Saint Peter. So of course the healing of his own mother-in-law is significant to him. For, I'm sure, any number of reasons. But we see also who Jesus is by that act, by that what I'm calling a relatively insignificant act. Because it's the small things, right? So in this sense, it's like if Jesus were only performing miracles on the big stage, then he might be harder to read than he actually is. But this kind of half-hidden moment of his curing Peter's mother-in-law from a fever. This shows his compassion, right? It shows his motivation. It's not like he's not walking in there and performing economic calculations. Well, if I do this, then what am I going to get out of it? Like, what's going to come from my doing this? This is a hidden moment, and we see that he doesn't lack compassion there, and that compassion, I think, probably extends to Peter and the whole household and the rest. But there it is, and I think there are signs in there where she gets up and waits on them, or she performs acts of service, of diaconia. She is raised so as to lay down her life in service of God. So there's a lot going on there. But then we see this kind of growing to crescendo as Jesus makes his way around the region. I mean, this is kind of scary stuff when you consider the fact that, like, everywhere he goes, there's just piles of people. And it's people who are in need of healing, and especially those who are demon-possessed, or those who are, under the oppressive and dark forces. And you say, well, I mean, if it was that's a scary time, isn't it? Like, if all these people, it's not like zombie apocalypse stuff, but it might be pretty close to that. It's like, where are all these people coming from? I mean, is this really like, this is a massive problem for people at the time. And we know that there's, of course, massive civil and social unrest in this part of the world at this particular time, and that people take that into themselves. This is one of my real concerns recently, right, is that so much of the collective psychoses of the world are being embodied by real people. And I can see my mother and Lori are here, like I should say, they are on the front lines. Like, I take a step back from the front lines because they can be there. But it's like, what we talk to people with some frequency, and it's not like things feel unstable. Things are unstable. And I don't want to say like people's lives are falling apart, because I don't want to feed into to that kind of neurosis. But I do want to say something like, these are likewise very difficult times, and we would be inclined to do things like release people from the demons that are holding them hostage. But it may mean some other things. Like this is a pretty, in this sense, it's a pretty broad category to say that there are people who are held captive by dark forces. And even if those forces are things like, if they just manifest as fear, and then push that to the extreme, it's still a massive issue. But Jesus is there in the midst of it, right? So it's kind of like there's this growing movement of people being gathered to Jesus. I mean, we see Peter come and say, and again, this is it just feels overwhelming. Everyone is looking for you. Everyone is looking for you, because I mean, how good it is as well, right? So we've got people who understand that they're sick, and they're trying to get to Jesus because they realize that their healing, their wholeness, as I said yesterday, their integrity or their integration as the cure for their being as a cure for their disintegration, they realize that this is Jesus. He has what they need, and what he has is. He has compassion. I want to say, I'm not making it like that simple, like, oh yeah, well, Jesus was the only person of the time to have compassion, and that's why they were. That's not what's going on. He embodies the compassion of God. He embodies the authority of God. He embodies the power to put things right. Jesus does. That's why, by the way, we are on the front lines here, because people realize that Jesus has that power. Jesus still has that power. And they come looking for that encounter to help their healing and wholeness and the rest, but also to help find their mission, right? To find where, because it's not this simple. Number one is that we have to be part of this crew that presses in on Jesus, that goes in and seeks him out no matter where he is. And here he withdraws into a deserted place to pray. Well, we go off with him. We want to go and find him. Where is he? Where is Jesus? And I can say, like, have I talked to him today? Do I know where he is today? Do I know where Jesus is today? Did I spend time talking to him today or seeking him out? Sometimes feels like he's not in the general vicinity. And you have to, like, are we pushing into that to say, I need to give this my attention and energy, especially in prayer, because I have to find him. I have to find him, because without him, what do I have? Without him, I'm just left scattered, dispersed, my energy, my resources, my attention, and the rest. Where is Jesus? I need to find him, because I need to be gathered together again by him. I need to be healed by him. I need to be restored by him. But it doesn't stop there, because we realize that Jesus has called us to himself. And he's called us to himself to be part of his restoration of creation project. He's called us to himself to be part of his healing and compassionate work project. Yeah, and that means then that we have to be motivated and led and guided by, one, prayer, and two, compassion. Right, compassion in the classical sense of to suffer with, right, compassio, right? We have to have hearts of compassion. We have that only because we're prayerful people, and the compassion of God is at work in us and working through us. And then we find ourselves as yeah, of course, members of the body of Christ, but agents of God's loving rule. And we're allowing his loving rule to take effect in us, to put things right in us, but then through us also to put things right. But all of that work is the work of compassion. Right? It's not work of our own choosing, it's not work of our own initiative, it's the work of God's prompting. And so, yeah, if we want to be part of the restoration of his entire creation, if we want to be part of his putting the world to rights project, then we first have to go and seek him out. We have to be attentive to him. We have to be docile to his instruction, to his sending. And knowing that he is equipping us with his own life of love, we then can be eager to execute on the works of compassion that he calls us to.